Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are starting our next lecture in International Human Resource Management, that is staffing and recruitment. When we talk about staffing and recruitment, we must go through the approaches. That means the policy approaches we are having in international HRM. So in international HRM, we have different type of staffing policies, although we have discussed it a number of times. So there are staffing issues that internalization firms, they confront, that they are either not present in the domestic environment or are complicated by the international context in which these activities take place. So IHRM, basically, when we talk about staffing and recruitment, it has to go for the flow and find out which particular approach it has to go for when it comes to staffing. So as far as these approaches go, we have primary attitudes of the management, that is ethnocentric, polycentric, and geocentric and regiocentric. When they are building an multinational enterprise which is based on top management's assumption, like which particular key product, functional and geographical decisions are made, and so on the basis of this, these approaches are implemented. So first is ethnocentric approach. When foreign subsidiaries, they have autonomy, and strategic decisions are made at headquarters, and key positions in domestic and foreign operations are held by managers from headquarters. So subsidiaries are managed by staff from the home country. That means PCNs are sent to other subsidiaries to manage its operations. So this particular approach is known as ethnocentric approach. So there are certain, you can say, reasons why organizations go for ethnocentric approach. So it could be a perceived lack of, there are not qualified host country nationals. So organizations might think of having PCNs over there. Then to maintain a good communication, coordination, and control links. And so with this thing in mind, organization might go for ethnocentric approach, although ethnocentric approach has got certain disadvantages also, because it limits the promotion opportunities of HCNs, which might lead to reduced productivity. We have already discussed it in our last lecture. And then the adaptation of expatriate managers to host countries, it often takes a long time, during which PCNs often make mistakes and poor decisions. So there could be disadvantages of ethnocentric approach as well. Then polycentric approach, under this approach, it involves M&E treating each subsidiary as a distinct national entity with some decision-making autonomy. That means, as compared to ethnocentric approach, in polycentric approach, certain amount of autonomy is given to the subsidiary. So subsidiaries are usually managed by local nationals, means host country nationals, where you are operating. So you are operating from that, the skills which are available in host countries, so which are seldom promoted to the positions at headquarters. And PCNs are rarely transferred to foreign subsidiary operations. That means in case of polycentric approach, parent company nationals are rarely transferred to the foreign subsidiaries until and unless there is a dearth of skills, or it is a requirement over there. So it has got its advantages. Employing HCNs eliminates language barriers, because a person is localite from the geographic region over there, and avoids the adjustment problems of expatriate managers. Then employment of HCN, it allows multinational company to take a lower profile in a sensitive political situations. For example, if a country is operating in, let us suppose, say in a country where PCNs are not welcomed because of the political scenario or because of the policy which is prevailing in that particular country. So it gives an advantage that HCN, that host country nationals are being given priorities over PCNs. Then employment of HCN is often less expensive, even if a premium is paid to attract high quality local applicants. So all these are the advantages. Again, there are certain disadvantages because there might be possible that there is a gap between HCN subsidiary manager and PCN manager. Then host country managers have limited opportunities to gain experience outside their country because they are not moving to other nationals. So their experience is limited to that particular geographical location only. And then we have geocentric approach. So with the geocentric approach, MNE is taking a global approach to its operations, which is recognizing that each part, that means subsidiary, it makes a unique contribution with its unique competence, and it is accompanied by the worldwide integrated business. So nationality is less important than ability. Then there are major advantages to this approaches, that it enables MNE to develop an international executive team which assists in developing global perspective and an international pool of labor for deployment throughout the global organization. If you remember, we discussed case of Nike, we discussed case of Deatec, these tractors, then we discussed example of Cisco. So all these are having different approaches. So this approach supports cooperation and resource sharing across units. So when we talk about, say, these approaches, so these are different type of staffing approaches which are followed by a particular company while going for, say, having their international assignments. So then we have international overseas assignments. And international assignment is an overseas task set by a company to an employee. Right? That means, for one is that now you are having an approach, that which particular approach organization must implement so as to have a staffing over there. Then we have international or overseas assignments. An international assignment is an overseas task which is set by a company to an employee. An international assignment is a time limited staffing across national borders, mostly with the target of knowledge transfer and of establishing a uniform corporate management. Now, when we talk about international assignment, this is basically you are not sending a employee permanently to that particular position. It may be just because of certain project, because of certain requirements. Sometimes it might happen that you are establishing your operations in overseas, and just to get it established you are sending employees from parent company to the host country. So we will not say that he's an expatriate, but we'll simply say that he has been sent on international assignment over there. So because of this, it helps in saving time and saving skills. So that companies that engage in international assignments are mainly multinational corporations. Now, what could be the reasons?
मैम
Yes, please.
मैम इंटरनल असाइनमेंट समझा दीजिए एक बार.
International assignment.
Yes, ma'am.
International assignment means when a person is being sent to host country. Now you will ask that if he is being sent to host country, then he is expatriate or PCN simply. He is PCN, but we are not sending him for for a longer duration of time. It is just for a very, very short duration of time, maybe for a completion of a certain project, maybe completion of certain training which PCN wants to give to HCN over there. So that type of assignment is known as international assignment. We'll say that a person has been sent for an international assignment, but not as an expatriate. Expatriate, the time duration is much more. Is simply being sent, or you can say a transferred for a particular duration of time to the host country or overseas. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, there could be certain reasons for which international assignment is, people are sent for international assignment. Now it could be for position filling. When we say position filling, that means you are you are sending a person for filling a position. That means the organization has need and is depending on the type of position and the level which is involved, will either employ someone locally or transfer a suitable candidate. Now if the thing is, if skill is not available locally, then what is the choice left with the company? That you are transferring a suitable candidate to overseas, right? So then it goes for the relocation trend. There was a survey which was done as a relocation trend survey. So it said that short term position filling, it continues in the organizations, and because of lack of available skills in the host country. So position filling by sending an international assignee or a person from the parent company to the host country just to fill in that position for a very limited period of time is your position filling. Then it could be, second is management development. As I said, that it could be part of a training. So staff are often moved into other parts of organization for training and development purposes and to assist in development of common, maybe corporate values. These days, for example, organizations go for management development program wherein employee is being sent to overseas. What it helps in? It helps in first in obviously in updating of skills and developmental aspects of an employee, plus if you are making your employee highly motivated, because out of certain employees you are just choosing a particular person and sending him on an international assignment as a part of training. So headquarters staff may be transferred to subsidiary operation or subsidiary staff transferring into parent operations. It could be from both the ways. Headquarters staff may be transferred to the subsidiary operations, or you can have HCN to the PCN as well. So assignment may be of varying lengths, time, and may involve project work as well as trainee position. So it will depend on the type and nature of development program you have been sent to. So that will define the tenure of that international assignment. Now, third reason could be organizational development. Now, organizational development means wherein some strategic objectives are kept in focus. So the need for it could be the need for control, transfer of knowledge, competence, procedure and practices into various locations, and to exploit global market opportunities. Like you are sending a person from India to US to just have a look of the US market, what the market is like, what are the requirements of the market, whether we'll be able to control that particular market through by managing customer expectations and by adhering to the policies and economic scenario over there. So you are just sending a person to know all about this, which will help in the overall organization development. So as a result, organization capabilities, it enables a firm to compete in global markets which might be developed. So these could be the requirements of an of an organization when you are sending a person for international assignment. One, it could be position filling. Second, it could be management development, and third, it could be organization development. So when we talk about process of international assignment, well, it can be divided into 5 categories. Or 5 steps, you can say: strategic planning, selection, preparation, performance measurement, and repatriation. Although I'm not discussing it here at length because this we are having as a separate lecture. So I'm just giving you an overview of these 5 steps. Strategic planning, obviously you will have to strategize that why you are sending a person on international assignment. Reasons could be management development, organization development, and position filling. So, whatever reason might be there for sending a person or a PCN as an international assignee, it has to be gel with your overall strategic business planning. Then selection is very important part, because out of say bunch of employees, you will have to be very particular about whom to select or whom to zero down for to send a person as international assignment, because it is not only your criteria which will decide, it is the acceptance level of the employee as well, whether he wants to accept the international assignment or not. So when you are selecting, there are number of criteria which you have to take into consideration, and similarly employee is having his own constraints for not accepting the international assignment, which you cannot overlook, and which organization may not feel bad about it because of certain constraint. If you have, for example, if you have shortlisted a person for international assignment and he gives you n number of different reasons for not accepting the international assignment, then company should not feel bad about it, because accepting international assignment is something which involves employees' emotional, physical, and family involvement. Right? Then third is preparation. Now, once you have now selected a person for international assignment, it is not just you can just give him a letter and send him. No, you have to preparation. Preparation is in form of training. You have to give him cultural training. You have to prepare your, assignee before sending. You will have to make him aware about the economic condition which is prevailing over there, the political scenario, the cultural and social aspects of that particular location and area. So it is a long, you can say it is a long, actually a long process, wherein you have to prepare before actually sending a person to the as an international assignee. Then performance measurement. Now your company is taking all the pains for sending a person from parent company to host country, then it is very important that you gauge his performance, whether the objective of sending him from parent company to host country, has it been met or not. Because performance measurement, again we will discuss it in performance evaluation, performance measurement will vary from country to country. The aspects which you will, the standards which you have laid down against the measurement of performance, it will vary. Right? This we'll be discussing in next, when we'll discuss performance evaluation, there we'll discuss it at length. Then repatriation. Once you have sent your international assignee to the host country, your job is still not complete, because now the important thing is to bring him back to the parent company. And repatriation again requires training. I'll say for international assignee, if it is for a shorter duration, then repatriation won't be that cumbersome process. But if it is for sometimes it so happens that you have sent a person for international assignment maybe for a year, but then you tend to extend that assignment, and now it has gone up to 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. So the longer the time duration of an international assignee in the host country, the difficult it would be repatriation. Why it would be difficult for repatriation? Because again it depends on the nature of on the type of country in which you have sent. Let us suppose you have sent a person from India to UK or US, which are more developed as compared to India. So calling that person back to India will require adjustments, because now he is adjusted to a different environment, a different set of cultural values over there. So you have to bring back that employee to the parent country. So it requires again physical as well as emotional training. And during 5 years, even the country where he is actually belonging to, that too has undergone gone a change. 5 years could be a long duration when he left and when he is coming back again. So repatriation again is a very typical and a lengthy process, and it has to be very strategized. Then there are certain type of international assignments, as I said, that depending upon the duration of assignment. So employees are transferred internationally for varying lengths of time, depending on the purpose of transfer and the nature of task to be performed. So multinational enterprises, they tend to classify it according to the length or duration of the assignment. It could be short term, it could be extended, it could be long term. Short term, it could be up to 3 months. These are usually for troubleshooting project supervision or a stopgap measure until a more permanent arrangement can be found. That means you are just trying to fill in up a position for on a temporary basis or a small project base. Then extended up to 1 year. These may involve similar activities as that for short-term assignments, that a person is being, you are keeping your employee stay back in the host country. Then long term, it varies from 1 to 5 years, which involves a clearly defined role in receiving operation, like senior management role in a subsidiary. That means when you are sending a person for long term international assignments, then you need to be very, very, you should have carved that position, or you should have carved his uh, assignment in a very uh, dignified and very strategic manner. So the long-term assignment has also been referred to as traditional expatriate assignment. So the more number of years you are extending, then your international assignee won't be called as international assignee. Then automatically he will be, termed as expatriate. Now we have two words. One is expatriate. Expatriate means when you are sending parent company national to the host country national. But when we are having host country national and TCN, third country national, in parent country, for example, let us suppose in India, let us suppose TCS. TCS is India-based company. Now in India, I am having, say, employees from UK, could be host country where I'm already having operations, and it could be say Hong Kong, where I may not be having operations, but I'm having employees from there, TCN. So what I'll call them, they will be called as impatriates. Expatriate, when employees from parent company, they are working outside, that means at host country or third country, host country, they are known as expatriate. And when you are having host country nationals and third country nationals working in home country, they are known as impatriates. Then we have recruitment for overseas assignments. When we talk about recruitment from overseas assignments, if we say, when we talk about recruitment, what is recruitment? In general, we say that it is creating a pool, right, or attracting, wherein you are trying to attract potential candidate to your organization. So it is defined as searching for and obtaining potential job candidates in sufficient numbers and quality so that the organization can select the most appropriate people to fill its job requirements, right? We all know this, that recruitment is when you are creating a pool which obviously is of sufficient number and of quality which is required by the organization. And on the other hand, selection is the process of gathering information for the purpose of evaluating and deciding who should be employed in particular jobs. That means out of this recruitment pool, out of these sufficient numbers and quality, you are gonna to having a proper feedbacks analysis about the choosing of candidate for a particular job. Now, before you are going for international recruitment, Now here in general, when we go for recruitment for domestic, say, operations, we are having a defined and limited geographical reach. But when we are talking about international recruitments, it is very important. In previous lecture where we define where we discussed international HR planning, you have to keep in mind that which particular source, whether we have to depend on internal market, labor market, or whether we have to depend on external market. We have countries like Japan, we have countries like US, UK, predominantly Japan, countries like Japan, they still are dominated by internal, geographical location. That means they internal labor market. They depend on their skills for they depend for their skills on internal labor market. And countries like UK, US, still they are dominated by external, although now there is changing approach of being internal. Now even they are trying to depend on their internal labor market. But countries like Sweden, they are predominantly dominated by the external labor market. That means they hire from external labor markets. Now the question arises, what makes them to decide this? So go back to human resource planning, where we said that you, before going for recruitment, you as an HR manager, as an HR planner, you must have knowledge about the country's demographic, country's population, country's male-female ratio, country's employment ratio, country's language, country's qualification, skills, everything. So you need to have a complete idea about that. Then only you can decide that from what countries you need to recruit. Is it home, host, or third? But before you actually decide that whether it should be home, host, or third, you must have complete information about, obviously for home you are having, for host and third country. Then what techniques to be used when recruitment is planned outside home country? Now, if you are planning, as I said, countries like Sweden, they depend on their external labor market. Now, that means how you are going to approach that labor market. Now, there could be sources. We all know we have sources. Now, herein we are not talking about internal source, because it is external labor market on which we are dependent. So it could be headhunting, it could be through consultants, it could be global assignments, it could be even competitors. So there could be n number of sources and techniques. Even these days we have these social networking sites, which is giving you exposure to different skills all over the world. Then whether to centralize recruitment activities in home country or decentralize in foreign subsidiaries. Now this will depend on the approach organization is having. If it is ethnocentric, whether it is polycentric, then again, if you decide that recruitment activities, whether you want to, for example, you want to recruit for, you are India based company and you want to recruit for UK. Now, whether you will go to UK and recruit over there, or you will, by sitting in India, have recruitment over here and then send them back to UK. So you will have to decide whether it is centralized recruitment activities in home country or decentralized, or you are going to decentralize it, right? So there could be internal recruiting sources if you are looking out for your internal labor market. Then it could be global talent management inventories. That means electronic records of employees, work-related information such as knowledge, skills, and abilities, education, past performance, interested. So this you are having internal recruiting sources. That means you are just looking into the employee inventory which you are already having in your operating countries. And second is in-house global leadership program. educational programs designed to provide leadership competencies to high potential employees. Generally, this is for, you can say senior positions. So what you are doing, you are developing them as global leaders through certain training and development and programs, which will give you a bunch of employees for your positions. Then former or current expatriates. Well, expatriates, they serve a good source of recruitment because they have been working outside. They have been working outside your home country. So they have much more exposure as compared to your non-expatriate employees. So individuals who have been on foreign assignments or are currently on an assignment, you can approach them again and send them on your international assignments. Then nominations. Recommendations from potential supervisors or other expatriates. Generally in company, what happens, like as performance appraisals, when performance appraisals or evaluations, they occur, so your supervisor, he might nominate if he is aware that there is a vacancy lying abroad or overseas. So organization might ask for your top performer performance nominations, who you want to send or recommend for international assignments. But having said that, sometimes it so happens because of your supervisor, he gets a bit, you can say, insecure by sending his top performer employee overseas, because then he will be having lack of top performer employee in his home country. The next is internal job posting or intranet. Job advertisement that can only be viewed by current employees, usually posted on company's intranet system. That means you are just posting your as an advertisement in your official mails through intranet, so that each and every employee, whosoever is interested, might apply for that particular position. Then international succession planning programs. So they prepare high potential employees for overseas positions as look-see visits. Look-see visits means just you are going to a particular country, having an over, you are sending a person, like you go over there, see how you feel about it, how organization is working over there, and you can then make your mind whether you want to work over there or not. But this generally is offered to top performers whom organization does not want to lose, and they are being offered like this. Then we have external recruiting sources. External recruiting sources, we have recommendations from current employees or expatriates. Then job fairs. Now these job fairs are not what job fairs are meant for domestic recruitment. These job fairs are much more sophisticated. These job fairs are much more concentrated, held at a very, you can say, lucrative position, lucrative destinations, and their events where employers and potential applicants can meet each other. And company internet sites. Obviously, website is nowadays most accessible, you can say, source of information for having making your position visible. So a company's dedicated career website that allows participants to learn about employment opportunities within the organization. So each country, region, generally, if you see, you can just visit a particular any country's any company's website which is operating globally. So you will see, the moment you will just go and have your cursor on, say, career, pop-up window will open and ask for the country, that which particular country you are looking in for. So then executive search firms, these recruiting firms that specialize in a particular types of individuals or industries, obviously they are as good as your consultants. But again, these consultants are, you can say, a high-end consultants, that they have specialization in international recruitments. Then professional associations or networks, like You are member of certain professional bodies. Then you are having, you are meeting persons, you are meeting your potential applicants. It could be through or in a seminar, in a conference, or it can also be through social networking sites. We have a common like very popular networking site, LinkedIn. Then competing firms. Currently, expatriates or former expatriates from competitor firms are potential applicants. You know what happens? For example, this is very interesting. For example, you have sent an expatriate from India to work in UK, right? Now he is working in UK. Now there is another company that has its operations in UK and requires a person for UK. Now what it will do? It will approach a person who has been sent by competitor to the UK, and just approach him and just poach him from already working company to your own company. So currently expatriates or former expatriates from competitor firms are potential applicants. Then global leadership programs in universities and colleges. Obviously, you as a development program, you are offering leadership programs in foreign locations, in overseas universities and colleges. Now you are accessible to the companies who are working in that particular geographical location. So most of these programs, they prepare senior level students for global leadership positions. So these were some of the internal and external recruiting sources for your international assignments. So this was all about recruitment and international assignment for the day. Thank you.